Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Welcome in, everybody. Sports Daily on a Wednesday. Glad to be here with you today on the show. Jacob Albracht here with Tommy Castor. We got a lot of good stuff coming up today. The CFP out last night. KU reaches historic levels for the program. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what a 12-team playoff would look like and our thoughts on the rankings in general. Kevin Saul joins us a little later, top of the next hour. Shocker basketball underway. We'll get some thoughts from Kevin Saul on how things looked in the opener. They get right back to it tomorrow night. So quick turnarounds. And the women back at it right here today. So a lot going on there at Wichita State. We'll talk about that. We'll get into and look ahead to some football for the weekend and all kinds of good stuff. We have giveaways coming for you today. We'll give away some movie tickets, a sneak peek to the opening of The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So make sure to stay tuned to listen for your chance to win that, to win some HTO tea and coffee. It's all going to be available to you on the IHOP hotline, by the way. 869-1240 is that IHOP hotline. This Veterans Day, by the way, IHOP will be welcoming veterans and active duty military with free red, white, and blueberry pancakes to thank them for their service. That'll come on November 11th. A lot of good stuff to get to this morning. Jad Chambers producing, manning that IHOP hotline. Tommy, how are you?
I'm good. I feel like last night was the first time in a number of days where there really wasn't like big time sports on, right? So like got a chance to just sort of kick my feet up, catch up on some shows that, I'd been putting off for a while. So that was nice, but we're going to get right back into it this weekend. Thursday night football tomorrow night. And then we get into the weekend slate, college basketball, college football, NFL. We're getting right back to it pretty soon.
Yeah. Bears, Panthers, do with that what you will. We may get Justin Fields back. And of course, Bryce Young, the #1 overall pick, gives it some intrigue, but Thursday night football, probably like to have that one back. You mentioned I was working elections last night, so I didn't get to watch much. I did have the Baylor game on in the background. It's a pretty good college basketball game as Baylor held off Auburn in a neutral site game. But yeah, it was, we have a new mayor here in Wichita, Lily Wu, and election nights on off years like this aren't terribly crazy. It was, everything was wrapped up by about 9 o'clock. But I was with you. I was like, this is the first time. And I think it's because the Rangers had been on this run where I had to watch something every single night. Like it was, obviously something that I would welcome any time of the year. But now that we've gotten through baseball, college basketball will pretty much take that place, I think. But yeah, it was a little strange to have the light sports load last night. I agree with that for sure. But we get those CFP rankings, Tommy. Wait, I don't know. Like, where do you fall real quick on these? I totally understand why they do it, and I would do it too if I were them. But I do think we get a little bit too worked up about these rankings with 3 weeks to go. Like, there's so much of it that has nothing to do with where teams are now because I don't know what I'll say 80 to 85% of this stuff plays itself out anyway. But we do get worked up about it. It's fine. I don't know why it's like preseason rankings. Why does that bother us? Like, it doesn't matter. The CFP rankings on November 8th don't matter a ton. They matter to some degree, but not really. It'll only matter if teams remain with the same records and stuff, but it always is a good talker. And, we love our football. We love our rankings, but are you into these coming out every week before we get to the part of the season where it really matters?
I don't right now because, again, there's only 4 teams in the playoff. Once we expand it to 12, then at that point, I think I'm going to have a little bit more excitement about where teams are going to be falling into place. But when you've got 4 slots and you're ranking 25 teams, or approximately around there each week, it really doesn't matter for the vast majority of the teams that are in these rankings right now for this season. So no, I don't pay super close attention to it. It's not appointment setting TV for me. I'm not sitting down and watching those rankings coming out week in and week out. I'll consume it after the fact. And then, at that point, again, it comes down to who those top 4 teams are. Really no surprises right now. I think it's going to be really interesting if Michigan continues to win, what the CFP does with them and how that's all going to play out. But right now, no, I don't have a ton of interest in it.
It's been really interesting. too, to watch KU and K-State. KU, the highest it's ever been at 16. K-State, rightfully, in my opinion, stayed in that top 25 with the game against Texas. They stay in there right at 25. So, I think, that does tell us something about K-State. They're one of only 3 teams with 3 losses still in there. Notre Dame and Arizona are the other 2. So, let's talk about the ranking itself right now, and then we'll get into the 12 team, which is far more exciting and fun. So, to me, it is, again, it doesn't really matter because it's just not that important yet. But it is a little ridiculous that Michigan is in over Washington and Florida State because Michigan has not played anybody. Their schedule is laughable right now. And I know they've been really, really, really dominant. I saw something yesterday. An opposing team has not run a play inside Michigan's 10-yard line. Any of the 6 touchdowns they've given up this year, teams have almost all of those have come on big plays. Nobody's driving the ball down the field on them. It's impressive. I get it. They haven't played anybody. And I don't know how you can, rightfully put them there when Florida State and Washington both have big-time wins. Again, it doesn't really matter because Michigan still has to play Ohio State and they still have to play Penn State this week. So they'll get their – and then a Big Ten championship game. So they'll get their games in. But why are we even doing this right now if we're not thinking about that stuff? How in the world could Michigan be higher than, Washington, who's beaten Oregon and USC now, Florida State, who's got a win over Clemson, who's got other big wins? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Again, I'm not losing sleep over it because it doesn't matter, but it is ridiculous. If we're going to do this, let's do this right.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of issues with Michigan being in over Florida State because Florida State is still number 4. Like, they're still in the top 4 in the rankings right now. So it's not like they got kicked out. I mean, I know you'd rather be the 3 seed than the 4 seed, but I don't have a ton of issue with that. What I do have an issue with is Michigan being in over Washington. Washington has been flat out outstanding this year. Michael Penix Jr. looks to be one of, if not the best player in America. And they've been super impressive. The game against Oregon was one of the best football games that I think I've watched in a long time, especially on the collegiate level, and the way that the crowd was and all of that was just, it was great. And then, of course, last week, what they did against USC on the road was extremely impressive also. So, I mean, I definitely have an issue with that. For Washington to be on the outside looking in right now, I think that's unfair and doesn't accurately convey how good of a team Washington is. But, I mean, this is the way that it's always going to be, right? This year, we're going to be looking at the number 5 and the number 6 and maybe even the number 7 team like, oh, they missed out. Next year, when it goes to 12 teams, we'll be looking at the 13th, 14th, and 15th team about them missing out. But right now, I mean, you mentioned it, how Michigan will have their games, Penn State this weekend, Ohio State in a couple of weeks from now. I would anticipate that we'll see this top 4 shift around pretty significantly. I think we'll eventually see Washington up in that top 4 and probably Michigan fall out.
Yeah. The thing on the 12 team and wanting 13 and 14, Tommy, if we had 40 teams, we'd be arguing about 41, 42, and 43. That's going to happen
regardless. Yeah.
Yeah. I that's never been a good argument to me.
But I think it does lend a lot more credence when you're looking at an undefeated Washington team at number 5 that right now is on the outside looking in.
And there will be lots of things that play into this like that. But, it does generally sort itself out with 4, but it doesn't always. And so this will be, it will be better. So if we look at 12 teams right now, and several people have put this out. I'm looking at 247, and you got to remember these aren't going to reflect totally what we see now because it's 5 highest ranked conference champions and then the at-larges. So in a 12 team based on the rankings that came out yesterday, or sorry, four best conference champions and then whatever. You'd have Ohio State as the 1, Georgia 2, Florida State 3, Washington 4. They would get the buys, okay? So that would be your top 4. And then here would be those opening round matchups. The 8-9 game, Alabama, Oklahoma. The 7-10 game, Texas, Ole Miss. The 5-12 game, Michigan, Tulane, and the 6-11 game, Oregon and Penn State. Now, I'm going to tell you, every single one of those 4 games is insanely intriguing and would be awesome. Okay. And then you advance on for the chance to play those other 4. So, if it goes by seed, then you would get Michigan against Washington, Alabama against Ohio State, Texas against Georgia, Florida State against Oregon, and so on and so forth. Who isn't signed up for that? And how does that not better determine who a national champion is in the country? Because you can look at it and look, Tulane's not playing their way through that, but that's fine. You've given a team that's been good consistently at least a chance to get out there and prove it.
The other thing
of the other 11 teams, Tommy, any of those teams could win a national championship this year.
The other thing to keep in mind with those opening round games that you mentioned that I'm super excited about is that you're talking about an on-campus game, right? We're not talking about neutral site. We're not talking about them going somewhere else. We're talking about the better seed getting a home game, a home playoff game in the opening round on campus. So can you imagine, what'd you say, Alabama and Ole Miss? Was that the matchup that you mentioned?
No, Alabama, Oklahoma.
Alabama, Oklahoma. Well, that's great too. So Alabama, in Tuscaloosa, potentially taking on their future SC opponent. I guess it would be their SEC opponent next season in Oklahoma, if that were to happen. But I mean, you're talking about not only intriguing matchups, but you're talking about the better seeds getting home games, on campus games. I mean, talk about the atmosphere and the environment late in the season. That's incredible. I can't wait for that.
So, and that's the thing too. And we look at it by conference. Like if this was next year and Texas and Oklahoma are in the SEC, who would both be in here. Now, I don't think this is the way it's going to end up at the end of the year, by the way. But anyway, you'd have 5 SEC teams in of the 12. You would have 3 Big Ten teams. You'd have 2 Pac-12 teams. You would have 1 ACC team, and then your other. There wouldn't be, and this wouldn't play itself out this way. You don't see a Big 12 representative in there, but you would have a Big 12 representative there. Whoever wins the Big 12 would be in this scenario. But I don't think that that's outrageous of a split, right? Like you would see at least 1 Big 12 team in, and in this year that would probably be fair. It's been a relatively down year for the league. But 5 out of 12 SEC, I don't think that's crazy. I guess Oregon, I gave Oregon to the Pac-12 and Washington. So the Pac-12 and that, which won't exist, right? In that, and I don't know what they're going to do with that, by the way, because we've still got to figure that part out. But it is interesting. Like the Big 12 and the Pac-12 of those 12 teams right now, what they'll be next year, don't have a team in there. Like you have a handful. There's a handful of current or future Big 12 teams that are currently now they would
just outside that top 12 with Oklahoma State and Kansas and Utah coming into the conference. Kansas State in there, so like there are Arizona is in the top 25 CFP rankings for right now. So, you've got a handful of teams that are just on the bubble, like right outside of that top 12. If it were a 12-team playoff this season,
I'm the biggest Big 12 advocate in the world. We look at this top 12 and a next year Big 12 team in there. That's not a good year for the Big 12. Like it's just not. And so that's okay. Like it's, again, Brett Yormark saved this league by getting that deal done before the Pac-12, because if he didn't do that and this year played itself out, I'm not sure that the Pac-12 doesn't get the deal and the Big 12 gets left out. I mean, that's reality. Timing is everything. Thank goodness for us around here that was the case, and we get this awesome league next year. So, but it is pretty funny to look at this and not have moving forward, there's not a Pac-12 or Big 12 team in there. Anyway, but if there's 5 out of 12 SEC teams, or let's say a combination of 8 out of 12 Big 10 and SEC teams in this, that's probably okay. Right? Because you've got a Big 12 team in there. And it's not going to be that way every year, but you got a Big 12 team in there. You've got a chance. And that's my problem. And it has always, like, more than anything else with, obviously the 2 team is ridiculous, but even the 4 team, you've had 5 major conferences and only 4 spots in the playoff. That doesn't make sense to me. You have to get conference champions into this format. Now, if that changes to 4, right, because the Pac-12 is essentially dead, okay, that's fine. But the champion of the ACC, the champion of the Big 12, and obviously the champions of the SEC and the Big 10, they have got to be able to play in this game. Whatever else happens, I can live with it, right? Like, I am okay with anything else. I'm okay with a team like Tulane not getting in every year, but, I want to see them sometimes. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it dominating, and being skewed heavily toward the SEC and the Big Ten. I think there are a lot of years where that's fair. Not so much in the Big Ten. They're top heavy, but the SEC, like, that's fair to me. I'm okay with that. But you have to, no matter what, I don't care if they have 4 losses, you have to have a Big 12 or an ACC representative in this playoff. If we get that, there will always be national appeal to college football. If you don't get that, like if they did this and you didn't, let's say that it looks just like it does now, and the Big 12 doesn't have a team in, the people in a large portion of the country are not really paying that much attention, because we want to see the Big 12 represented there. I mean, everybody goes that way all the time, right? Like, if you're a KU fan and Kansas State was in the playoff, you telling me you'd really like to see Kansas State lose there? I don't think there's I mean, some people will, yes, and that rivalry runs deep. But if K-State is playing Michigan for a national championship, well, maybe not, because KU wouldn't want. You know what I'm saying, though? Like, we want the Big 12 to succeed, no matter who it is. If it's Oklahoma State, whatever other example. So it keeps the appeal nationally to college football to make sure that you have those champions in there.
It's the exact same way when the NCAA basketball tournament comes around. I don't know if a lot of people are like me, but I certainly will cheer for my team. But then I'm also going to root for the Big 12. And I'm going to keep track of how the Big 12 is doing as it stacks up against the other conferences as far as the overall tournament is concerned. This would be the exact same way. Like even last year, Kansas State playing Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, like, that's a big spot nationally for the Wildcats. And so I would imagine a good section of Big 12 country is watching that, right? That they're wanting to keep an eye on that and see how that ends up going for the Wildcats. So, I totally understand that. I get that. I mean, right now, when you're looking at the 14 playoff, the only current Big 12 team that has even a remote chance of making it in is Texas. And that seems unlikely. Seems unlikely to me that they're going to be able to get from 7 to 4. Now, some crazy things can happen, but I think they're about the only team that even would remotely have a chance to get into that top 4.
So you would have to have. It's going to be tough because, like, if Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, right? You could end up with one of those teams. Like Penn State could jump Penn State certainly, but if they're going to jump Ohio State or Michigan, they need Penn State to beat Ohio State or Michigan. And if Penn State beats Ohio State or Michigan, it's going to be hard to jump Penn State. So that's where that and the SEC, you're not jumping. Like, they're not, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Georgia. It's going to be hard to jump them regardless. So now you're looking at really one spot. You'd have to jump the Pac-12, basically. Florida State, you'd have to have Florida State lose 2 games, number one. And then you'd have to have Washington or Oregon. Oh, well, you'd really probably have to have them both with 2 losses. It would be really hard. I'm with you. It's very much a long shot.
And there's a chance. But it's going to be
because Louisville too. Like Louisville, you got to jump them. So if like Louisville beats Florida State in an ACC championship game, I mean, now are you going to jump them because that becomes the best win? Texas doesn't have a win better than that. It's tough. That's okay. It's been a rough year in the Big 12. Like, is anybody complaining about that this year if the Big 12's not in there? I don't think so. And I think we're all up to speed with that reality. It's almost like this is a year where you go old school bowl games and just hope you get a couple of good ones, and the Big 12 represents itself well there. That's the CFP ranking. You can chime in on that IHOP hotline. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, on our video streams as well. Available on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can leave your comments there for us. You can tweet at us or X at us, however that's said now. We got lots of ways to get in touch with the program. The IHOP hotline, of course, is open, 869-1240. We'll come back with more Sports Daily right after this.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here. Jake Albracht, Tommy Castor. Can't get enough Chiefs content? Check out Fansided's Arrowhead Addict, a Kansas City Chiefs podcast, free on the Odyssey app. Follow Arrowhead Addict on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast. Chiefs, of course, on a bye week this week. Well-timed. If you missed anything with our conversation with Dan Israel, the executive producer of the Chiefs Radio Network, you can go to kfhradio.com or for free on the Odyssey app and go back and listen to that interview. Tommy, K-State football, trying to bounce back. Chris Kleiman talked yesterday. It's interesting. You know, he's always like move forward, and it's always this message. But he did admit yesterday, right out of the gates, that it will be a little more challenging just to move on because they had, you know, a top five-ish team on the ropes and should have beat them, and they didn't get it done. You heard, you know, Ben Sinnott, I don't know if you've seen his comments after the game. He was very frustrated with people doubting Will Howard and constantly talking about the quarterback situation. This is a pretty big emotional moment for K-State to respond to here this weekend. And, you know, as we want to look ahead to that Sunflower Showdown game, they're 20-point favorites against Baylor. It's sort of a get-right game, but only if they have the right attitude going into it. And you can feel just a little bit of, you know, uneasiness there. You can sense it. But this is where Will Howard really is so valuable, right? If his teammates are getting frustrated for him, if they're coming off an emotional loss like that, this is why you love having Will Howard in the building, because of his leadership. And this is, you know, every chance for him to just step in and right this thing, you know, both on and off the field.
It is absolutely ridiculous for anybody to suggest that the reason why the Wildcats lost the game against Texas is because
I don't even know if that's what Sinnott was saying.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it was more about like who should be the starter, and Howard should, you know, doubting him just in general terms, not in that performance itself, but clearly a guy who's got his back doesn't want to hear anymore about a quarterback controversy. Now, I get that, especially from a young person, especially when that's your boy. I get it totally. But I will say it's only because of what Avery Johnson brings to the table. To me, it's always been about that and not really about Will Howard. Even when Will Howard struggled on that 2-game stretch and people were saying it's time for Avery Johnson to take over, a lot of people. And I said, no, go 2-quarterback system. I still kind of want the 2-quarterback system, but I get why we haven't seen it because Will Howard's playing great. Like, you know, you've got chances to win these games. You don't want to get him off the field. I think I'm totally fine with it, but let's also be fine with wondering what this is looking like moving forward. Because at the time those questions started to sort of circulate through, Will Howard wasn't playing great. And at times in his career, we've seen Will Howard not be what he is now. He looks more like the quarterback we saw last year now, and that's great. And honestly, for his sake and his chances to get to the NFL, if he's playing that way, leave him out there. I'm totally fine with that. But, you know, you can just feel like you could feel a rare inside moment there where a leader on this team, somebody everybody looks up to, showed some actual frustration with the conversation.
Didn't I warn everybody about this? I mean, to an extent, about as far as like having not the 2-quarterback system from a play standpoint and from a logistical standpoint, but more from like a locker room type situation.
Yeah, but Tommy, you wanted Avery Johnson to be the starter, and that wasn't the right thing either.
I'm not suggesting that there's any kind of like internal locker room issues. That's not, I mean, I know that Ben Sinnott was talking more about the public and the media and that sort of thing, and the conversations about who should the starter be and who shouldn't be. But I warned against, you know, having a distraction of, you know, not naming one starter and moving forward with that guy, despite the upside of both of them and what the different things they bring to the table. you run the risk of having this conversation continue of who should the starter be. And then every time there, might not be something that goes your way, then the questions begin, well, should the other guy have been out there rather than the one that we had? Like, you open the door to those different things happening. And again, I'm not suggesting that there are internal issues with the players and the team. It sounds like they're all on the same page on exactly who's doing what. So I don't have an issue with that, but I do think that by doing this system, by having the way that, they've kind of set things up, you do open the door to those conversations. I saw people talking about after the Texas game, well, would it have been different if Avery Johnson was in on the 4th down play? Who knows?
Well,
Who
I don't
knows?
know. I mean, it would have been fine to see him take an opportunity there, but Will Howard was the architect of the comeback and looked good. Look, Tommy, if they named Will Howard the starter instead of going with both, do you think those same questions would be being asked?
Probably not at the same level. I think that they would be, but when you see what Avery Johnson can do in those situations, yeah, there's a tremendous amount of upside. He's a great athlete and a great talent. But if you're not exposing that to everybody on multiple occasions, then you can't have the what if question, right?
What if they go with Avery Johnson there and he struggles, right? What happens then? So, like, to me, there's never been a clear-cut answer to this question. The only time we've had, clear-cut answers, honestly, has been the last couple of weeks as Will Howard's played really well. And the Houston game notwithstanding, because I don't know what to make of the Houston game, but he's been a much better quarterback, lately. He had the interception against Texas, but, really since that Oklahoma State loss, he's been steady Eddie consistent. The Texas Tech game was a game script game. And then TCU was the best of the two quarterback system. And then he had 2 incompletions against Houston, and against Texas, he was fine. So what surprises me is not that, they've gone the way they've gone or they've given Will Howard more reps here or anything. That's not what surprises me about this. The thing that I take away from it is that anything from the outside is making its way to the inside. That's very unlike K-State and its programs, and especially, well, really forever, right? From the Bill Snyder era now into the Chris Kleiman era. That's something they've done a really good job of there, is pushing all that stuff to the side. Now it's bled through. And honestly, I think that, Ben Sennett's frustration, I don't think it comes as much from wondering and the intrigue about Avery. I think it comes from the doubters of Will Howard. And that's the voices I think that are bothering him, because there were a lot of them after that Oklahoma State game, because he had rattled in a few not good performances. And I think that's where you've bled, sweat, and cried with these guys, and then all of a sudden they have some adversity and everybody's ready to cast them aside. And we knew that K-State wasn't going to do that with Will Howard. For everything he means for the program, for everything he did last year, that just never made any sense to me. But now you've got a situation where after a loss, there's clearly some frustration bubbling up to the top.
But it does open the door for speculation. And you know what? People may get the narrative entirely wrong. They may get the intent behind the decisions entirely wrong. They may think that all the times that Avery Johnson has come in, it's been because the coaching staff doesn't trust Will Howard. That's wrong. That's a complete wrong assessment, right? But it does open the door to that wrong speculation. And so that's when, again, you're running the risk of that sort of thing happening. If it was made very clear, and this might not have been the best thing to do, but if the coaching staff had said, Will Howard is our starting quarterback, ride or die, we win with Will, we lose with Will, Will is our quarterback, Avery Johnson is our quarterback of the future, then at that point, yeah, you're kind of shutting the door on showing the athletic ability of what.
The question then?
I'm not saying they wouldn't ask the question, but what I'm saying is that at least it's definitive and clear from internally what the decision is and what the direction is. We haven't really known, right? Like, we've known from game to game, we don't know if we're going to see Avery.
They know,
we don't know if we're going to see Will.
Though. They
know, but we don't know.
I know, but we wouldn't know anyway. We would speculate just the same.
But if Chris Kleiman stood in front of the reporters and said, Will Howard is our ride or die quarterback, we are not moving away from him. He is our quarterback. You will not see Avery Johnson unless there's an injury. Then at least at that point, the speculation dies down and you don't have to worry about
it. Doesn't
yes,
die
it
because
does.
those reporters aren't doing their job. If Will Howard has a bad game and they're like, Coach, did you ever think about going with Avery Johnson there? I don't care what he says.
And then the answer is no.
Great.
Will Howard is our quarterback.
But that doesn't,
what I'm
again,
saying is
that
I'm not saying
the speculation.
Again,
though.
I'm not saying that that's the right decision for Kansas State to do moving forward offensively. But what I am saying is that if you're concerned about the noise from the outside seeping in to the inside in the locker room, part of it is because of what was created with this 2-quarterback system, right?
I don't agree with that. I don't, because you can't control that. You cannot control what people say and speculate about on the outside. If they came out, I don't care if every week he wore a Will Howard is my quarterback shirt. We're still going to talk on the outside. You think if he did that, Tommy, we would stop wondering about Avery Johnson on this show?
No, but let me give you an example. Let me give you another example for a team that you follow, the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott struggles every third week, right? Or whatever it looks like. But you know that he is the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, right? It's not like
bad example, because there were a lot of people last year speculating about Cooper Rush when Cooper Rush came in. There was a large segment of the fan base asking for him.
Is anybody speculating this year about, well, is Trey Lance going to get in there?
Great.
Is Cooper Rush going to get in there? No. What I'm saying is that you know who the starting quarterback of the team is, and Dak Prescott, for better or for worse, is the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
That's not a good example, because last year when he got hurt and Cooper Rush played well,
he got hurt.
Out of that.
He got hurt.
I understand. I get it. But what I'm saying is it didn't matter that they said every week, well, when Dak comes back, he's our starter. People still speculated. When Dak Prescott was a rookie and Tony Romo was there, that was the same situation. Like, the Cowboys don't have a quarterback that's going to press Dak Prescott at all. Like, okay, better example. Right now in Tennessee, Will Levis and Ryan Tannehill. Like,
Ryan Tannehill's
never going
injured.
They announced today, Mike Vrabel announced Will Levis as the starter and as Tannehill's ready to come back. So, but it does, again, even if he had come out and said definitively the other way that Ryan Tannehill is our quarterback and that's who we're riding with, they're not going to stop speculating on the outside in Tennessee about what the team should do.
I'm not suggesting at all that the outside is going to stop speculating. Well, all I'm saying is that Chris Kleiman, I think the perfect time to do it would have been after the Oklahoma State game when Will Howard struggled. If he were to stand up and say, yeah, he struggled, he had a bad game, we're really excited about Avery Johnson.
That's not the best decision for the team.
All I'm saying, you're missing my point. All I'm saying is that if you have concern, which you just stated that you did, that there is now external noise getting into that locker room, and Ben Sinnott is having to defend Will Howard against the outside of the narrative about whether or not he's the starting quarterback for the team. The team could have controlled it a little bit better than what they did. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying whether or not it's the best decision.
I don't know that there's been any discussion internally on any of this. And you can't control what's done on the outside. I'm sorry, like we always say it's a good problem.
Better than what you did. But you can frame it better than what you did. How many times has Lance Leipold at KU said in front of reporters and said, Jalen Daniels is my starting quarterback. When he's healthy, he can play?
That's fine. That's a more clear-cut situation. Jalen Daniels is much better than Jason Bean, right? Like, that's definitive. If Jalen Daniels is healthy, he's better than Jason Bean. The problem, and it's not a problem, it's a good problem if you frame it that way, is that you've got two great options, right, for K-State. And by the way, like, they haven't used Avery Johnson much in the last two games because Howard's playing well. So, and some of this is misguided from Ben Sinnott. They were frustrated after a loss. Like, dude, like, come on now. Like, just be excited that people are talking about your program, number one.
I just think that it's concerning that if you believe that there is potentially some issues in the locker room with players having to defend.
In the locker room.
I'm not saying all issues. I'm saying, like, if players like Ben Sinnott feel like they have to defend their quarterback from the outside, and like that's what they're focusing their energy on. You said it yourself. they've got to bounce back from this quickly. Yeah. And if this is what they're focusing their time on, there might have been a better way to manage it. That's all I'm saying.
But the best way to manage it, they were winning these games. I think they managed it the right way because they won those games after they made the decision to use them both. And
all I said before was you run the risk of there being some issues when you can't, like the old saying goes, if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, right? And so I think that I'm not saying that they're both extremely talented, but what I'm saying is that if you don't have a definitive path for both of these guys and exactly the way that you're going to go, it's great when you're winning, but when you're losing, you have to start to answer for that decision a little bit.
But don't you think internally they have a definitive path?
Internally, that's great, but how vocal have they been outside of their own internal locker room about exactly what the plan is?
But they're never going to tell. They're not going to tell they're not going to tell the public what their game plan is, Tommy. I don't know what they could have done different. We can continue this. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll have Kevin Saul at the top of the hour. What do you think, K-State fans? Join us on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this.
Beach.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, here on Sports Day. A couple more minutes on the conversation. Didn't expect it to go that way, but we can finish it out. We'll have Kevin Saul, top of the hour here. Let's on the way right now. Let's do our HTO giveaway before that. We know Jad's got to connect with Kevin Saul, so we'll do that while we're on the air here. So 869-1240 is the number. We can get you a free iced tea, a free HTO Brewhouse coffee, or espresso drink. To our first caller right now to the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Good luck, everybody. Get you some tea and some coffee on us here at Sports Daily. Jad will find us a winner as we finish our thoughts here. So I think we may be saying two different things here, Tommy. I just think it's interesting that you're seeing K-State listen to the outside noise of any kind. There's always outside noise. It's just not, it's out of character a little bit for anybody on the team really to bring anything like that up. I think it's boiling over of the frustration from that loss as much as anything else. And I'm really glad they get Baylor at home this week, because they kind of need a Baylor at home this week to just get it right and then go into that Sunflower Showdown game. And you could just tell from Kleiman that this one stung a little bit more than other losses have stung in the past.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that, especially considering the way that Kansas State battled back in the second half, took advantage of Texas's mistakes, got it to overtime, and then really, went for it to try to win the game, and it didn't pan out for them. Yeah, of course, it's going to sting. You had a great opportunity with the backup quarterback against Texas to get a signature win for your program this season and to stay in the hunt for a Big 12 title. So of course it's going to sting. And I don't fault them at all for being frustrated after the loss. You can't let it, impact you moving forward. And so I do agree with you that having Baylor next week or this weekend is going to be big and important for them. I just think that if the noise from the outside is getting into the locker room, some of that noise, not all of it, because you're never going to stop speculation from people, but some of that noise, I think, could have been quieted down with a little bit more of a definitive statement exactly what they're planning on doing at quarterback. Again, you don't want to give away your game plan to your opponents, and I'm not suggesting that. But what I'm saying is that if there was a clear cut, like Will Howard is our quarterback, we may try to throw in Avery Johnson from time to time, to get a fresh wrinkle in our offense. That's great. But Will Howard is our quarterback. We've not had that kind of definitive remark from the coaching staff at this point. I think that does invite more speculation.
Yeah.
And if it's seeping into the locker room, that's an issue.
Maybe they could say it and lie, because I just don't think it would be the truth if they said it. You know what I mean? Like,
you don't think Will Howard's their starting quarterback?
I think Will Howard's there, but they've never said he's not their starting quarterback. They've said they're going to use both guys, and they do use both guys. And so, like, there are situations in each game that present themselves. There was Avery Johnson didn't need to get more reps against Texas, right? But Will Howard didn't need to get more reps against Texas Tech either. So it was right. And the other thing is too, I just don't think it's the truth. I think that, if they feel like Avery Johnson has an opportunity in any given game to give them something, they will. Think back to the very beginning of the season, right? We saw Avery in the opener, and we didn't see him again for a while. Why? Because for a while, Will Howard was playing well, and then he kind of struggled. And then we saw some Avery Johnson. And then we saw two game plan games happen with Texas Tech and Houston and Texas Tech, right? After a TCU game, which they both dominated. So I really do think that they're taking it week by week. And I would imagine that inside that locker room, everybody's probably okay with that. It's that, I think Sinnott is just mad that people, it's not that they want Avery Johnson, it's that they're saying Will Howard's not good. And Will Howard has been really good. And what happens the rest of the way at quarterback, no matter what they say, we're going to wonder about it. It's a good problem to have. And everyone would like to have two good quarterbacks. We'll see. We can get more into this. We'll have K-State Insider in tomorrow. Tim Fitzgerald, we'll have Wyatt Thompson in. I do want to get their thoughts on this and see what they're thinking. Wyatt Thompson especially, he'll have a feel for that locker room.
Yeah, and I just remember saying when they first started kind of going to this two quarterback system, I remember saying it at the time, It's great when you win. When you lose, you do open the door for criticism about, okay, well, would it have been different if the other guy was in that moment? So you got to be careful with that. And I'm not saying it's been the wrong decision for them. I'm just saying when you lose a game, you start to get those questions.
Yeah, and I think they would be there anyway. But we'll discuss this further this week for sure. 869-1240. We'll come back. Kevin Saul, Wichita State Athletic Director, joining us on the program here. We'll be back with more Sports Daily right after this.
Live Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH, Wichita's most listened to sports radio. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The fall holiday is here, and we've been busy perfecting our new home-style turkey and stuffing meals. That's right, all the warm, comforting nostalgia of turkey and stuffing. None of the dishes to clean up afterwards. And the best part is, if your kid wants pancakes instead, we have those too. Celebrate with the whole family with Kids Eat Free every day from 4 to 10 p.m. for a limited time. Only at IHOP. Let's put a smile on your plate. Download the app and earn free food with every order. Account sign-up required. For a limited time, only one free kids entree. Each full price adult entree purchase. Dine-in only, restrictions apply.
Wichita State men's basketball returns to downtown Wichita to host the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State on Saturday, December 9th at Intrust Bank Arena. This will be the Shockers' first game at Intrust Bank Arena under the guidance of new head coach Paul Mills. Tickets start as low as $15 and can be purchased online at selecttheseat.com. Don't miss the excitement as Wichita State holds court against South Dakota State on Saturday, December 9th at Intrust Bank Arena in downtown Wichita. Game tips off at 6 p.m.
Here comes the Sandman, Adam Sandler. 1, 2, 3, 4. The I Missed You Tour. Adam Sandler, live. In Trust Bank Arena, December 10th. All right, let's lose that. I hate it. Get tickets now at livenation.com.
Don't let a great night out in Wichita turn into a lifetime of regret from a DUI. I'm attorney John Rapp. If you've been arrested for a DUI, please call me at 316-267-2000 or go to DUIWichita.com.
I can't wait for what's next. Even with higher stroke risk due to atrial fibrillation and irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem, Eliquis, the Pixaban tablets, reduces stroke risk. It's the #1 cardiologist-prescribed blood thinner.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without talking to your doctor, as this may increase your risk of stroke. Eliquis can cause serious and, in rare cases, fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or have antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or unusual bruising, or if you have tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. It may increase your bleeding risk if you take medicines such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
I'm Bob Burke, founder and chairman of Burke America Parts Group, a family of brands that includes RepairClinic.com, an appliance and HVAC parts solution company that's grown into an international brand. Before AmericanEagle.com, we partially launched a new technology platform developed by another firm. American Eagle helped take our technology to a whole new level with digital marketing, software development, and business insights into our key markets, appliances, HVAC, and outdoor power equipment, and did so both on time and on budget. AmericanEagle.com has the resources, experience, and talent needed to produce solutions. Our new technology platform, developed by AmericanEagle.com, has produced tremendous results with higher traffic, conversion, engagement, and online revenue. If you have any home repairs you need to take care of, check us out at RepairClinic.com. If you need a world-class website or technology project, then I would highly recommend AmericanEagle.com.
Call AmericanEagle.com at 773-NETWORK. That's AmericanEagle.com, 773-NETWORK.
Imagine the sweet, tangy, rich flavor of barbecue sauce and the smoky, salty taste of crispy bacon. Well, you don't have to imagine any longer. Try the Spangles Western Bacon Cheeseburger. It's a third pound of Black Angus steak burger on a butter-toasted bun and topped with smoky barbecue sauce, crispy bacon, and onions. The Spangles Western Bacon Cheeseburger. The perfect burger for your sweet, tangy, smoky, savory cravings.
Freshness made to order. Spangles, it just tastes better.
Here's Renee Stephen from Spangles with a sweet treat.
Come in and try our Gerdelli Sea Salt Caramel Apple Pie Slide and make it your new favorite treat. Stop in soon because it's only back for a limited time.
Back at Spangles, the Caramel Apple Pie Slide. We start with an entire slice of warm apple pie and add layers of creamy vanilla soft serve and top it off with Ghirardelli Sea Salt Caramel. It's a sweet spin on a time-treasured treat. Spangles, it just tastes better.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
Yesterday, KU basketball coach Bill Self signed the most lucrative deal ever given to a college basketball coach at a public university. The contract will pay him $53 million over the first 5 years. At the conclusion of each year, another year is added to the deal, and Self will earn a one-time $5 million retention bonus if he serves out the first 5. The contract includes incentives that could drive the value higher and includes a provision allowing the renegotiation of terms after the 2025-26 season. The Wichita State women are hosting Presbyterian for their home opener today at 11 a.m. at Charles Koch Arena. This marks the first meeting between the Shockers and the Blue Hose. Both teams are looking for their first win of the season. WSU coming off of a loss at Oklahoma. Presbyterian coming off of a loss at Kansas State. Tonight, we're right here on 97.5 and 1240 KFH. Tune in at 7 o'clock for the Chris Kleiman Radio Show. The Wildcats coming off of a 33-30 overtime loss to the Texas Longhorns in Austin. K-State preparing to host Baylor on Saturday afternoon. Filling in today for Sports Head, I'm Chad Chambers.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Sports Daily here. Hour number 2 on a Wednesday. We are trying to track down Kevin Saul. Keep in mind, the Shocker women play at 11 o'clock. So Jad will continue to try that, and we will get that if we have it. Tommy, Jad mentioned it in his update there before we came on. Bill Self signs the most lucrative deal, basically redoes his contract to make him the highest paid coach. I thought that was interesting. Certainly didn't see that coming. I thought sort of the lifetime coach thing was the tip of the cap to him, but they decided to go in and make him the highest paid lifetime coach now at KU. I guess there may be that they're clear of this investigation thing. They felt comfortable doing something. I would now think that they probably had in mind the whole time, maybe. Highest paid public university coach. Anyway, I think Krzyzewski might have been higher at Duke, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. He passes coach. It's almost like, all right, fine, Kentucky, you get the wins record back. Well, we're going to have the highest paid coach. Take that. But Bill Self gets his deal, and it's not surprising. I again, for my money, I think he's the best in the business. I think he's the best at balancing, the portal, recruiting, and coaching all wrapped into one, and he has been for a while. The continued success is unmatched, and I didn't see it coming, but it doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, you mentioned the timing of it. Bottom line, they're clear of the NCAA investigations. That was I think the timing behind all of it. And so now that that's done, that they wanted to amend that contract and give him more money. So it is what it is. I thought the timing was interesting too, kind of the same way that you mentioned. But now with that over and gone and off their shoulders, I mean, they can move on and make him the highest paid coach.
All right, we'll get more into that in a little bit. We do have Kevin Saul now. Jad will hit the intro here, and we'll talk a little Shockers on Sports Daily.
I'm going to Wichita.
Hey, Shocker fans, want the latest on Wichita State athletics? Let's go right to the source with Shocker AD Kevin Saul.
All right, welcome in to Sports Daily, Kevin Saul. Glad to have you this week. I know you guys are busy. We appreciate it. You have a women's basketball game coming up in a little less than an hour. We'll talk about that. But Shocker fans are crazy, and we got a men's game in there. What were your initial thoughts there of everything? The night, the environment, the crowd, the performance was obviously the way that I think you guys would like it to go. But what are those thoughts on that opener on Monday night?
Well, first, good morning, Jacob, Tommy. Appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. I thought it was a good start for us for sure. Obviously, it beats the alternative. Our guys have worked really hard. Coach Mills and the staff were very well prepared. I think you will see, Shocker Nation will see a very prepared team and coaching staff, and strategic in what they do and very intentional. And so all those things were great. I thought we set the tone early with a scripted play that really got our crowd juiced. Our facilities and operations folks did a nice job. Always going to get better. We never run the perfect event, but they did a really nice job. So I think it was a very positive step in the right direction just from a general perspective, and obviously a lot of details and specifics to go into that.
Kevin, in watching the game on Monday, it kind of hit me midway through the first half, just about how much fun it looks like it's going to be to watch this team play, the pace that they play with, the energy that they have. And we knew that was what Coach Mills brought from Oral Roberts, is that level of intensity, that energy, all of that. What did you take away from that in the opening game? And how much fun was it for you to watch the fast-paced style of basketball?
It was enjoyable to watch our guys compete and have some success and win a contest and feel really good about it, to have just a great bench in terms of the engagement of the managers and GAs. Like, everybody was all in. And that piece is really, really important. The care factor within the program is incredibly high. I know Coach Mills talks about that as well. He and I've talked a lot about, as we grow this program. He said it in his post-game press conference the other day. We all feel an obligation to put forward a program that Wichita can be proud of. I was at a gala event last night and spoke with many of our season ticket holders and donors, and the conversation very much centers around what a great city Wichita is, period, and what a great place this is when Shocker basketball is successful. And so that's what's on everybody's mind. I think what you saw Monday night was some joy. And that's certainly one of our motivating factors, is bring a lot of joy to the community of Wichita and represent the university well. So I think very encouraged to start, but it's one of 31. And so we got a long ways to go.
So we know Kevin Saul, Wichita State Athletic Director, joining us, which Shockers back in action tomorrow night as well. So we saw Lipscomb without a key piece there, their best player, but you guys are missing some players too here. So I didn't look too much into that, but it does make me, we haven't checked in on this in a while with you. So do we have any sort of updates or information on the status of Ronnie DeGray or Bijan Cortez, and if and when they might be able to join the team?
Yeah, Bijan, Coach Mills addressed Bijan's situation last Friday at his weekly press conference that the NCAA initially denied. We appealed, and it was denied again. The case for Bijan. We do plan to revisit that late this first semester to determine if there's a exemption that can be made. He's doing really well and is in everything that he's doing, and so he's certainly made some real positive steps. So it's a disappointing result. I would say it's probably not a shocking result based on how the waiver process is going and navigating their way through the NCAA system. Ronnie's is still ongoing, and we'll continue to work at that one. Those guys, those are processes that maybe sometime outside of basketball season, we spend a little time on your show talking about the intricacies of that, but it takes a tremendous amount of time, effort, and energy to assemble all of the documentation that's required for these waiver processes. And Corey Torgerson, Kalen Helm, and in our compliance office do a fantastic job coordinating with our coaching staffs and our student athletes to do that. And I know Shocker Nation at times can get impatient and disappointed with NCAA decisions. And at the end of the day, we're going to push as hard as we can on those. And we came up on the short end with Colby last year because Siena did not sign the NPO, which now does not exist. And that was totally within their right to do that. So anyway, we will navigate those as best we can. Bijan's is we have clarity through this first semester, and then Ronnie's is still ongoing.
Speaking of Colby Rogers, Kevin, I thought it was remarkable in watching the opening game that not only did Colby Rogers have an outstanding first half shooting the basketball, but 4 out of the 5 starters for this team in game number 1 are returners. And in the world of the transfer portal and all of that, I mean, how do you feel about the fact that Coach Mills has put together a starting rotation where the majority of players are returning to the program, getting big minutes, and guys like Xavier Bell and Isaac Abide and Quincy Ballard are getting extended minutes this season when they didn't a year ago?
Well, I think it speaks to just the overall improvement, right? So you can first start about talking about the young people in our program. The young men in our program work really, really hard. I would share with you, and would take way too much time, but maybe a couple of data points. Late spring, early summer, I might come into the office really early one morning, and there's a basketball bouncing on the floor, and I go and peek in the arena, and it's Isaac Abide. Or leave late at night, and there's a basketball bouncing on the floor, and I peek in, and it's another individual. So our guys have worked really, really hard at that. We've got some GAs in the program whose responsibility it is to come down here and develop those players when they want to, 24/7, 360 advantage of that. Our guys work hard. I think when you get into the starting lineups and all those, it's obviously coaching decisions. They're going to put the best starting lineup out there that they believe will bring the success. But you're seeing some significant improvement, right? Quincy looks awesome. He's not hampered by the back injury that slowed him down last year. Xavier Bell's gotten bigger. You're seeing him back down in the post and be effective down there. He did a nice job. The turnovers, our exhibition game, I think we had 17, and the other night we had 10. We were +1. And so we just continue to try to improve, but very encouraged by everybody's effort and energy and commitment to the small details as we move forward here.
It was, Xavier Bell, the local kid, getting and running the point, Harlan Beverly there. And this is, this is just so we know on if those guys run the point, are the questions about the players that could come back, are those, Kevin, just like for right now, a full year, or is it semester? I just don't understand like the timing of everything. Are all those waiver things just for now, or is it for the full season?
The waiver that we submitted for Bijan was denied. We appealed it. It was denied again in the appeal process. Okay. We did communicate an intent to revisit that at semester through a different process. Okay. So we do not consider that to be a year-long piece for him. And Ronnie's is still in process.
Yeah. So now with that in mind, how comfortable do you think everybody is with the point guard situation? It's an interesting look. It was like, I loved it watching 2 bigs like that. I think it's going to be a unique look for people, and the Shockers may play big, but do you think that the feel for Xavier Bell, who's playing better, I think, than anybody, expected, and Beverly is going to be enough at that spot?
Well, again, I'm going to leave that up to our coaching staff. Ultimately, I think we've got a very capable group of guards. Coach Mills addressed in his weekly press conference last Friday that while we're disappointed with the decision on Bijan, and we continue to support him, he's working hard academically in the weight room and on the floor. He's also a scout team point guard, right? So that's a pretty good point guard to go against. So Xavier's still competing against him every single day. We've got a great group of guards, and I'm incredibly confident in Coach Mills and our staff to be able to figure out a unique way to maximize that group without a quote-unquote prototypical point guard. So I think we can be effective. At the end of the day, I know we're going to be focused on taking care of the ball, efficiency, and leadership at that spot. So I know our staff will get us in a good spot, and our guys will continue to work hard. Xavier, passionately wants to lead this team to success. He's a Wichita kid, as you guys know, and he's very passionate about this place and this team.
Kevin, I want to focus in just for a second on Colby Rogers. And, of course, a great debut for him, 20 points, 18 of them coming in the first half of play. How special is it? I can imagine how difficult it was for him last season to not get the waiver, to not be able to play, but stay with the program throughout the coaching change, all of that throughout this offseason, and then have the debut that he did. How fulfilling was that for you to watch what he was able to bring to the table on Monday night?
Oh, incredibly fulfilling, right? You walk through a pretty tough journey for him last year where he's sitting and watching 30 games, and you can see it in his face last year. He worked really, really hard in the practice gym and throughout the year, and then obviously navigated some adversity in the spring semester through a coaching change. But he has remained consistent. He's about as steady as it gets. His emotional intelligence is incredibly high. I caught him on the concourse the other day, and we were chatting about how difficult last year was for him. And he just had a big smile on his face because he gets an opportunity to compete and represent a place and a group of people that he loves. And I think you saw that in his play Monday night.
Let's talk about the women real quick. They've got another one coming up. Look, I think they had us all kind of like perking our ears up a little bit early in that Oklahoma game, and then it eventually got away from them. But now they get a chance to come in and play some games, against competition that you feel like they can get some wins on. I think that was a really promising opener, wasn't it? To have Oklahoma on the ropes there for a little bit, for a while in that game.
Yeah, I would tell you that while we don't do
right, I get it.
Symbolic wins and all those sort of things.
Yeah.
You walk into halftime, you're up 4 at the number 23 team in the country's place. You've done some really good things. I thought they came out and stifled Oklahoma with the press. I thought they were very, very active on the defensive end of the floor in terms of getting their hands in passing lanes. I thought they did a nice job offensively with some movement, and the ladies knocked down some tough shots. And so you go up 4 at half, and certainly at that point in time that the number 23 team in the country is going to make a run. And the third quarter was a challenge for us. It did get away from us. I think we'll continue to work on the conditioning and all those things to be able to keep up with that. But lock that third quarter in the back of your mind, because the lessons that were learned in that third quarter are going to benefit us going down the road. But if you look at quarters, I know we play a 4-quarter game in 40 minutes, but if you look at quarters 1, 2, and 4, we were even. We were even score-wise with those guys. And so that tells you when you can play 75% of a game with the number 23 team in the country, you can play 100% of the game. And so we got a young roster. I think the 6A State Player of the Year out of Texas, Elise Blow, did a really nice job. Treasure Job did a really nice job. And so they'll continue to get better. We're excited about today. We've got 3,000 USD 259 8th graders that are touring campus right now. I'm actually standing in the ticket office at Coke Arena watching them pick up their lunches and come into the arena. So we'll have about 2,800, 3,000 really loud, screaming 8th graders for our matchup at 11 with Presbyterian. So it's another great opportunity for our ladies to compete today.
We talked earlier, Kevin, about Xavier Bell on the men's side and being the local talent and his dedication to trying to lead this team from the point guard position. On the women's side, I was really excited to watch Treasure Job on Monday and seeing what she could do. And I mean, she jumped out basically a 5-0 run by herself to start the game on Monday. Watching her about it for a long time. What did you take away from what she was able to do?
First, I'm incredibly impressed by Treasure as a young lady. She is phenomenal. She's incredibly well spoken. She is incredibly intelligent. We talked about Colby Rogers' emotional intelligence. She is a true pro. She does a nice job. We had a SASO board meeting about a month ago, and she spoke to the group. And I'm going to tell you guys, she spoke to that group like she'd been doing it for 10 years. She's engaging. So she's a dynamic force on our team. And clearly from a competitive standpoint, she's going to carry us at times. I think she had 22 that exhibition night against Missouri Southern. I think she had 16 or 17. I may be off a little bit with Oklahoma, but she does all the small things that you don't see in the box score. You're going to see her on the plus side on the box score every game because she takes care of the ball. She distributes it well. She's efficient. She can score, and she puts her teammates in a spot to be successful. So she is a pleasure. She's a joy to watch. And so it should be a special year for our team and for Treasure, and just kind of watch how she leads us.
All right, one more, Kevin. I know you're busy. A volleyball, real quick. They're chugging right along, sitting in the standings right now, third or really tied for second in that Western portion. Obviously we want them to win out and do their thing. As far as the postseason, any more clarity from what you guys gather and calculate there on, the chances of the postseason without a conference championship or anything like that?
Yeah, so you've got those two pathways, right? Most leagues will assign a automatic qualifier through a postseason conference tournament championship. Some will do it by the regular season. So the American Athletic Conference assigns its automatic qualifier to the NCAA tournament based off the regular season standings. And so we go to SMU, who was picked number 1. I think we were picked number 2, and Rice was number 3. Rice has fallen off a little bit. We split with SMU early in the season. You guys may remember. We played 2 matches back-to-back days. They beat us 3-0, and we beat them 3-1. So they would have had the tiebreaker based on sets won. And clicking right along, we struggled at Florida Atlantic. We did a couple weekends ago. We had a stretch where we went to Florida Atlantic and Memphis, kind of split weekend. We had a 5-set loss to Florida Atlantic, whose RPI wasn't great, so certainly that hurts us. And then we had a loss against North Texas this weekend as well. So while we continue to position ourselves in a good spot from a conference standings perspective, as the RPI slips further and further away from the top 40, the NCAA tournament becomes more and more difficult. So we still got a lot of the season left. I don't think we can project absolute clarity today. But again, it has been a good campaign. We've got to figure out a way to win those 5-set matches, right? We played North Texas the other day, and I think we gave up a 10-2 and an 11-3 run in 2 separate sets. That's it's tough to win matches doing that. So you give up a 21-5 stretch combined over 2 sets. That's going to be tough. So we got to figure out a way to stop those runs when they're coming from the opposing team. But Coach Lamb and staff done a great job. They recruited well last December. I know that recruiting's going very well this fall as well. So we'll keep moving forward.
And then on those standings that will qualify, games played in the tournament or in the postseason don't count toward the qualifying standings, correct?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Any games that are played
we don't have a postseason tournament. Yeah, we don't have a postseason tournament. So it's a true regular season. Now that will change next year, Jacob. The ADs and Chris was pretty outspoken about it, Coach Lamb, and I support it as well. We need to get back to a conference championship because that's an opportunity
recall some of that.
for us,
you're
in
off
my
there.
opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that helps us become a 2 and 3 bid league because you're going to have your best teams. If you protect those best teams, you're going to be able to enhance your RPI with some semifinal and final games. So we're going to get back to that. If for some reason we do not qualify for the NCAA tournament, we are going to submit a bid for the NIBC, which is the NIT version for volleyball. So there will continue to be volleyball here in the postseason.
Got it. All right. Well, we'll see if the Shocker volleyball team can win out, and we get, what do we need then? 3 losses from SMU. That's what we need on the table for volleyball. Kevin, we appreciate it.
SMU to trip up a little bit. Yep.
Yeah. Enjoy it. Enjoy those kids. A lot of future Shockers out there. I know that's an exciting day for you guys. And we'll watch Shocker women here in about a half hour.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate the time and the opportunity. Go Shockers. There
goes Kevin Saul, Wichita State Athletic Director, joining us here on Sports Daily for a bi-weekly visit. Yeah, I didn't realize that about volleyball, Tommy. That's too bad that you don't get that opportunity again to potentially play SMU. But, we'll see if we can get there. It's been a great year for Shocker volleyball. Glad to hear they'll be participating in some sort of postseason, or at least attempting to if it's not the NCAA tournament. All right, 869-1240 is our number. It's back open the rest of the way here on the IHOP hotline. We'll come back. We'll have more Sports Daily right after this. All right, welcome back in, everybody. It's KFH. It's Sports Daily. We're glad to be here with you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on our video streams. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch is the place to be. You can leave your comments there. Interesting stuff from Kevin Saul. Shame on me for not knowing that about volleyball. I did not, though. I remember the chatter about the tournament. I was a year off on that. Good luck to Wichita State volleyball down the home stretch here. It's been an exciting year for them. Good luck to the Shocker women's team, too. I'm very curious to see their game today, now not against Oklahoma, and see if they can flex a little bit. I think Presbyterian, by the way, the Blue Hose, got a big win on the men's side or something yesterday. Forget who they beat, but it was interesting. All right. Tommy, the Bill Self thing, real quick. We can finish our thoughts on that. It is interesting. I wanted to joke about, like, they were holding the preseason or exhibition performances, and they were making sure things were right, but I couldn't deliver the joke or anything. It's fine. It's unreal how good KU looked in that game. Bill Self now with what looks like a clean bill of health, man, he could go at this for a long time. Like, he's just not missing a beat here on doing this. He is not one of the old guard coaches that seems really uncomfortable in this new era of college basketball. This is the best thing KU fans probably could have ever seen yesterday, because it makes you think he wants to keep doing this for a long time.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it does. And I think that he's got this opportunity to not only be around for a long time, but, to continue to grow that legacy. It wasn't that long ago that, he's out of the NCAA tournament, didn't coach in the Big 12 tournament. There were questions about whether or not he would even continue as the head coach. Then you had all the investigations and the IARP and all of that stuff kind of hanging over his head, a dark cloud. You watch, he looks a lot better than he did. And I think that he's got not only a clean bill of health, but renewed energy, feeling better. I think he kind of understands. He talked about it when he came back, about how he had been pushing himself too hard. And, I can only imagine when you're a head basketball coach for a major university, how much that grind is on your body and your health and all of that, and so it seems like that's kind of, he's managing that better at this point. And like we talked about before, with the investigations done, all of that, kind of off the table now. I definitely saw this not from a financial point of view. When I saw the report come down yesterday, it wasn't like I thought, oh, like he's angling to make more money. It was, no, he's reaffirming that he's going to be there for a long time.
Yeah, I think so too. That was my biggest takeaway out of it, was that, yes, and honestly, it's just with the health stuff from last year. It's like, okay, yeah, it's going to keep, and because the original lifetime came in when 2021, I think it was. So it was obviously before the health stuff. Now we go and it advances. So Bill Self will do that. KU looks fantastic. K-State gets a quick turnaround, Tommy. We heard from Tang. I listened into a little bit of his sound after we did the show yesterday. The shooting woes, he said he thought, just because we brought this up yesterday, I wanted to bring out his thoughts on it. He said he didn't stand over there and think they were taking bad shots. They just weren't hitting any shots. And, that's, I guess, good news. He seems confident that those shots will fall. But is it good news? Because if they're not hitting, shots that they like, that's a little bit concerning too. I don't know who's going to step up for K-State right now and become that other secondary offensive player. I can't get a good grasp of it, because I'm not even sure that would have been Naquan Tomlin anyway. Like, who is, if it's not Tyler Perry, who struggled in the first half, he was great in the second half, who will be that secondary scorer? It looked like early going, it was Cam Carter that was trying to step up to the plate, but is that the best option, or is it some version of Kaluma that plays a little bit better than he did?
Well, Kaluma's not always going to shoot 1 for 11 from the floor, right? Like, that's not going to probably be the way that he plays night in and night out. So I would imagine that, he's going to be somebody that Jerome Tang's going to lean on. And, when I watched the game the other night, I'm kind of with Jerome Tang. I didn't think that they were taking poor shots. They just weren't necessarily falling. And that's going to happen from time to time. I don't have a ton of concern. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who's a big K-State fan, and I said, you guys are going to be just fine. Like I didn't look at the game on Monday and think, oh, like there's legitimate trouble, like big time trouble with this Wildcat basketball team. That wasn't my impression from game number 1. I thought that they were a little bit overmatched against USC, who's a top 25 team. But I don't think that we're looking at a K-State team that there's a lot to be super concerned about. I think it's just going to take a little bit of time, as I've said before, for the newcomers to gel with the returners. And how do you fill the gap of not having Naquan Tomlin for who knows how long? How do you keep that from being a distraction in the locker room? Do you lean on David Gasson? Does Arthur Kaluma have to do more than what he was, originally, I think, maybe signed up to do? So I think those are all the questions that they have, but not at any point did I watch that game on Monday and think, man, there's some big time trouble on the horizon for Kansas State.
No, they hung in there in a game they didn't play particularly well on offense, because I think USC, and we'll see what happens with Bronny James. And look, I'm not somebody who watches a ton of high school tape on. I am going to just assume that he's good based on the way he just skyrocketed up rankings his last year. But you add him into the mix for a team that looked really, really good, confident, and comfortable already. That looks like it's going to be a top 2-3 seed type team in the tournament, which would put you as somewhere in the top 15. And it was a good litmus test for K-State. I like that they went and played that game. I like everything about it. They're going to have that's the beauty of this, playing in the Big 12 now, and this will get even bigger moving forward. Like, if you're a Big 12 team, why would you even, like, the bye type games? Like, I would go play every great game I could to get myself right, because if you lose those games, there are so many opportunities to win games to get into the tournament, right? Like that. I feel like there's going to be tremendous. And KU's done this for years, right? They play unreal non-con games, and I do think it's a contributing factor into why they've had so much Big 12 success, because they're just ready for it. K-State, I won't be surprised if they start to do the same thing. Just play some real big time out of the gates kinds of games. Whereas a team like Wichita State can't afford to do that as much, because, they do need to kind of pile up some wins. In the Big 12, man, like, you're going to have every opportunity to go win every game that you can and just really pad that resume. So I love seeing that game. I'm with you. I thought they handled themselves fairly well in it. I have not had a chance to listen yet, and I will today when I go in for TV, to listen to Paul Mills' thoughts on the Western Kentucky game for Wichita State. I am curious to hear it, and I'm curious to see, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow, who runs the point. I mean, Tommy, so I needed, just because I'm not up to speed on the Beverly and Cortez situation. I don't know are we looking at another Colby Rogers situation, or is it a short-term situation? And I guess the answer is we don't know. They're going to try to make Cortez a short-term again, another way. But it's a big opportunity here for Bell, for Beverly. Like, it's an opportunity for those guys to go take the job, or at least, show coaches something that maybe they didn't know they'd need to show them before the season that we're going to have to see now.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Xavier Bell in the way that he played on Monday night. Harlan Beverly, I think, is somebody that can grow into that position a little bit more. I wasn't super, well, I don't want to say I wasn't impressed by him. I just didn't think that he showed out the way that maybe a couple of the other guys did in that starting five for Paul Mills. But I mean, Xavier Bell, and he's not the only one. Quincy Ballard is one. Isaac Abide is one, who we talked about it before. They had the opportunity to play extended minutes. Two of those three started the game for the Shockers, and they were all in kind of reserve roles a year ago for the Shocker team. And it wasn't like I never felt like they were pushed into extended minutes because there was no other choice. I felt like they were in these positions because they had earned being in those positions. Xavier Bell, I thought, looked really good running the point. Isaac Abide off the bench, I think, looked outstanding. Quincy Ballard, there were so many times last season that I at least was critical of the motor that Quincy Ballard had, and that I didn't feel like he would be able to last an entire game, or especially an entire season. He looks so much more conditioned, looks like he's playing with so much more energy than he did a year ago. So I think all three of those guys, we knew about Kenny Poto before, so I'm kind of leaving him out of this discussion, but those three guys who all were a part of the program last year and got extended minutes in the opening game, I was really impressed with all three of them.
I loved hearing that Abide has worked as hard as, Kevin Saul brought us in on, because I mean, that was the biggest surprise of the Shocker game. I think, at least it was to me, was to see that, performance from him, and what an added bonus that could be, because he's always tantalized us a little bit with his athleticism. But that's really cool. I can't wait. God, I'm ready for this. I am so happy that it's college basketball season right now.
The other thing I want to say, I want to respond to something you mentioned a couple ago about the bye games and things like that. I don't know if it is going to take like the NCAA to get involved. I don't exactly know what it's going to look like, but man, like there's got to be a better way. And I know for a while, like ESPN did the 24 hours of college basketball and that sort of thing to kick off the season, but we got to have more high profile matchups to start the season off. I mean, Kansas State and USC was fine, at least here locally, because we follow Kansas State, but that's not a nationally I mean, USC kind of is, but that's not something that's going to have like broad national appeal.
Well,
Baylor and Auburn last night, that was a great matchup too, but I feel like you've got to kick off the season with a bang. And I know they do the Champions Classic, but that's not for another week or so. Like you've got to start things off strong. Yep.
You need two a night to get them on ESPN, or probably just ESPN for this, or FS1, whatever. You need at least two a night to fill both windows. For most nights until you hit the holiday tournament. So what does that make? It's really just like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Just, and that incentivizes too, like for a team like Wichita State who wants to play those games and can't always find a partner, like it does incentivize that a little bit too. If I agree with you, if somehow the sport or the networks can come up with some plan, like maybe conference allegiances and all that stuff, as far as the networks kind of goes out the window, and we say you get the entire pool of teams right across the country. Let's schedule some television centric big time games. I'm all for that.
They do it for one night in the Champions Classic, one night. But if you can expand that out and do a lot more until you get to like the Maui Invitational and some of these other
because
tournaments.
we're done with baseball. And the networks will have their NBA coverage to some degree, but there's no reason you can't slide it in and fit some games in. K-State USC, got to remember, K-State was the darling of the NCAA tournament last year, and USC had Bronny James. I do think that one was very intentional. It didn't work out because Bronny had his medical situation. Thankfully, he's okay. And K-State, lost the two players, really the one that made them the darling of the tournament. But I thought that was a good play by TNT. And by the way, who was on the halftime show for TNT? I had that on. I was watching football at the same time. And then, of course, coming into Wichita State, KU, whoever that was, there's a woman in there that had some energy reading like the day's highlights of the opening night. She was awesome. I don't know who it was. I have no idea. That just popped back into my head as we're watching that game on a TNT broadcast, which was a little strange. All right, we'll come back. More Sports Daily. What do we talked briefly about K-State Baylor. KU's got the tougher test this weekend for sure. We'll talk a little bit about the Jayhawks next on Sports Daily. right, welcome back in, everybody, here to Sports Daily. Hey, you want to get a sneak peek of the new Hunger Games movie, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? That'll be Thursday, November 16th at Boulevard Theaters in Town West Square. Let's give away a pair of tickets of those right now on Sports Daily. Call us on that IHOP hotline, 869-1240, and get your hands on a pair of those tickets right now. Jad will get us a winner. Tommy, real quick first glance at KU this weekend. KU's better than Texas Tech. You got to beat Texas Tech. There's no reason. I don't care who the quarterback is, anything like that. You got to beat them at home. Can't overlook them. Can't get too hyped up for the Sunflower Showdown. They just got to get it done. I don't know. It's not going to be a lot of analysis from me anyway this week. It's just they're better. They got to win this game.
Isn't Texas Tech maybe the most under the radar Big 12 team that's out there right now? I feel like
most disappointing.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you can say that, but I also feel like they're just not in the conversation like I feel like past Texas Tech teams have been.
No, I mean, look, they were supposed to have a big year. I think they've clearly been the most disappointing team in the league this year.
Even more than TCU?
Yeah,
they played for a national championship a year ago.
Yeah, but they lost all their players. Their preseason expectation wasn't very high. Texas Tech's was. And, you lose to 17 to K-State. You lose by 13 to BYU. I just, what's Texas Tech's best performance this year, Tommy? Probably losing on a last possession to Oregon. They have losses to Wyoming and Oregon. They've beaten Tarleton State, Houston, Baylor, and TCU. That's it. They don't have anything to hang their hat on from this year. It is and I think they were picked third, right? Preseason. I mean, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was high. They've, to me, clearly without a question, been the most disappointing team this year in the Big 12. It's been Tech, and I don't know what that means for this week, but
all the way back at the beginning of the season. I mean, I think everybody kind of freaked out about them losing to Wyoming in Wyoming. That's a really tough place to play. And when you start your season on the road there, taking on a Wyoming team that you want to talk about flying under the radar, Wyoming typically does. They beat Texas Tech. That wasn't a good start to the season for the Red Raiders, but that's a pretty tall task for them to go into Wyoming and win that game. They hung with Oregon. I know that Oregon beat them, but they hung with them, and Oregon's a really, really solid team in the country. And then from there, West Virginia is better than what we thought. They lost to West Virginia. They beat Houston. Houston's not very good. They thoroughly beat Houston. They beat Baylor. Baylor's not very good. They thoroughly beat Baylor. So I don't know, they beat TCU in the same way, and they lose to Kansas State. I don't know if that would qualify as being a disappointing season. I think it's a season where they're beating the teams they should beat, and they're losing to the teams that they shouldn't win.
I don't know that but I'm just going to pull it up. Their preseason rankings here for Texas Tech, because I want to say they were third. In the preseason poll, they were picked fourth. Sorry, Texas, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Texas Tech. So I just that's a pretty stark difference in what you were expected to do. Now, I will say, Vegas is a better indicator of how good or bad a team is. They're not winning games, so that's not good. But as far as KU at home is only a 4-point favorite in this game. So, right. Whatever that means, maybe that means Texas Tech is better than their record, which probably adds to the equation for them being disappointing this year. But I certainly don't think Tech fans, in fact, I know Tech fans did not have this sort of season in mind where you don't have a single win to hang your hat on. It's maybe Baylor's more disappointing because they've been getting crushed. But I mean, you look up and they're right now, they sit in 8th in the league in a down year. I don't know, man. Their defense has really let them down. It's an opportunity for Kansas. I do think, though, it is, and I told you this. I think I told somebody this yesterday. I think I said it here. I am a little bit frightened about this game for some reason. Something about this is worrying me a little bit. I don't know if it's because, the line is close. I don't know if it's because Tech is like that wounded dog, right? Like that, they're looking for a win like this to sort of put anything they can into the season. But something does worry me a little bit this week. But KU's better. KU is having its best year in a long time. Just got to go get it done and know that K-State's looming a week after.
I don't have a lot of concern. I feel like Kansas is clearly the more talented team this season than Texas Tech. They're back at home. You do have to avoid a letdown before the Sunflower Showdown. You can't be looking ahead to Kansas State next weekend. But, I think it's been pretty obvious how much better Kansas is than Texas Tech.
I don't know how much better. I think they're better. I don't think Vegas thinks they're that much better, though. They only put the line at 4, and that's a part of what frightens me a little bit, I think. But, Tech's been getting beat by bigger margins than that by the good teams in the league. So I guess we can we'll have more on that on Friday, I'm sure. 869-1240. Congratulations, Keith, for winning those tickets. We will have our final segment. Reminder here, IHOP welcoming veterans and active duty military with free red, white, and blueberry pancakes to thank them for their service on November 11th.
Come watch men's basketball with 4 returning starters from last year's NCAA tournament qualifying team, or the women's basketball team with 7 returning players and great new pieces in place to make this a season you don't want to miss. The excitement is building. Come cheer on Hornet basketball. Get your season tickets and all sport passes today at ESUHornets.com.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day, and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry, with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I'm attorney John Rapp. At Hinkle Law Firm, we defend white-collar investigations. With a former Kansas Assistant Attorney General and years of experience defending clients, we stand ready and willing to help you. If you have been contacted by law enforcement, please call me at 316-267-2000.
There's never been a better time to save big on brand name furniture and mattresses than right now during Crazy J's huge $1 million inventory liquidation sale. All in-stock items 50% off store-wide while they last, no exclusions. Shop early while selection is best. Special financing available with instant approvals. Wichita's favorite furniture store since 1997. Crazy J's, open 7 days a week east at 1026 South Oliver or west at 604 North Tyler.
The safest deal in town.
Is your parking lot or driveway in need of a new seal coat or other repairs? Call Pave the Way. They specialize in pavement repairs, crack sealing, and seal coating, and they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They work nights and weekends so as not to interfere with the normal course of your business. Call 316-990-5855 today for a fast free estimate or online at pavethewayusa.com.
Pave the way, kicking asphalt every day. Oh, come on!
Sounds like it may be time for an upgrade. And Computer Depot has what you need. Laptops, desktops, tablets, Macs or PCs. Computer Depot has it all and at the lowest prices. Don't trust an online retailer to offer you a low price and then send you something that doesn't meet your needs. Stop into one of the 2 Computer Depot locations in Wichita and get on-site help from experienced technicians that will hook you up with the upgrade you need and at a price that will beat Amazon. Visit ComputerDepotLLC.com for locations and hours. That's ComputerDepotLLC.com.
Keep your water heater heating. Stop your faucet from leaking. Just call up the pros at David Lee's Plumbing.
Fall is coming and winter won't be far behind. The changing of the seasons always have adverse effects on water heaters. Call David Lee's Plumbing at 945-0117 when you need your water heater serviced or replaced. Call before you have a water heater emergency at 945-0117.
Let David Lee's Plumbing give your plumbing a new lease on life.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
Yesterday, KU basketball coach Bill Self signed the most lucrative deal ever given to a college basketball coach at a public university. The contract will pay him $53 million over the first 5 years. The contract includes incentives that could drive the value higher, including a provision that allows the renegotiation of terms after the 25-26 season. The Wichita Thunder are in Utah for a 3-game series with the Utah Grizzlies. Game 1 tonight at 7. West Valley City's Maverick Center. It is the first game this season between the Thunder and the Grizzlies. The Thunder coming off of 3 straight losses in Idaho to the Steelheads. Back on Saturday, the Thunder got goaltender Beck Warm back on loan from AHL affiliate San Jose. Warm is 2-3 this season so far. Tonight, we're right here on 97.5 and 1240 KFH. Tune in at 7 for the Chris Kleiman radio show. Wildcats coming off of a 33-30 overtime loss to the Texas Longhorns in Austin. Filling in today for Ted the Sports Head, I'm Jed Chambers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bob and Tom.
There's mashed potatoes and beer and holiday cheer. Let's eat those buns before they get much colder. Yeah. My expanding waistband. My expanding waistband. Oh, the turkey's basted.
Bob and Tom in the morning and highlights all day long.
Bob and Tom mornings. This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio. 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, good stuff today. Our appreciation to Kevin Saul, Wichita State Athletic Director, for hopping on for our bi-weekly visit. You've got Jim Rome coming up 11 to 2, Bob and Jeff locally 2 to 4. The Chris Kleiman Show on KFH at 7. If you can't get enough Chiefs content, you can check out Fansided's Arrowhead Addict, which is a Kansas City Chiefs podcast. Free on the Odyssey app. Follow Arrowhead Addict on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast. Tommy and I will be back again tomorrow. We get a little K-State talk with Tim Fitzgerald, a little betting talk with Chelsea Messenger. Tommy, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be fun. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.
For Tommy and Jad, I'm Jacob. See you then.